Most creatives are making critical marketing mistakes that are costing them sales, audience growth, and opportunities, and they have no idea how to fix them. So, welcome back to another episode of my ongoing series, Business Breakthrough. This is really a series where I roast or really just give feedback on your business. After the overwhelming response to the first episode, thank you guys so much for that, by the way, I knew I had to make this into a series. So today, we are going to be looking at 4 more artists from all around the world, analyzing what they're doing wrong, how they can fix it, and how you can learn from it. And thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. And the first artist we're gonna look at today is Voidbug, aka Melina Dowling. Voidbug, Melina, your art is amazing. I love it so much. You are incredibly talented. I genuinely, and I really mean this, it has been so long since I have been inspired by another artist like I have been inspired by your work. It's incredible. Melina is a fantasy painter with a spiritual focus who's transitioning her business from in-person shows to online platforms, including a new Shopify store and a planned YouTube channel. Her biggest challenge right now is building community around her business, while also overcoming her fear of showing herself and being vulnerable on social media. Okay, so the main thing that Melina wanted me to look at was her Instagram. So here we are. First of all, Melina, once again, holy girl, this is insane. You are so talented. You have a really clearly defined style. You have carved out the niche that you want to fill in the art community, and that is so cool. I do think that you are leaving some opportunities on the table. Let me explain, right? Because your work is such, it has such a clear focus to it, I feel like I want to deepen this world building. This, very Fae, Spiderwick Chronicles, Brian Froud style of thing is so cool. And what could connect this and take it all to the next level is more world building behind it, right? Let's start doing creative writing. Let's craft a narrative. Let's explore what environment these characters are in, what histories they have, what their lives are like, what world do they exist in. Because if you do that, if you start world building with the immense grasp of artistic foundations that you already have under your belt, again, your work is so good. If you focus on world building, you could truly blow everything out of the water for you. Let's start working on a graphic novel or an art book with some writing components to it. Have you ever read Fairies by Brian Froud and Alan Lee? That's what I could see for you. I know in your form, you said that you're currently kind of uncomfortable showing yourself online, right? There's a vulnerability component to being on the internet that you are somewhat uncomfortable with. And I think that's good to get over, but also really challenging. In the meantime, I want to encourage you to think about a character that you could inhabit, a frame that you could explore all of this world through. For example, maybe you inhabit this character of some kind of lost scientist or lost adventurer stuck in the Feywild. The Feywild's the Fey world in Dungeons & Dragons. That's my own personal thing. It could be whatever world you want, right? Imagine that you're some human that is lost, that is trying to document the world they have found themselves in. And you could tell the story of this world and these people and still narrate, still have voiceover components, but not have to share yourself per se, not have to share your own personal journey, but it could still be an incredibly compelling narrative and storytelling focus for your content, right? We are framing the beautiful work that you are creating in an entirely new light and adding a human element to it. Even though that human element is not necessarily you and your own personal history. If you want to do a YouTube channel, I think we could explore stuff like studio vlogs and process videos, of course, but again, really, I think a world building project that focuses on your art would be super compelling and a very unique niche to enter into within the art community because you have the art stuff down. That's good. No notes, once again, but if you combine that immense skill with world building and creative writing, you would create a YouTube channel unlike any that I have ever seen before. That is like a heretofore uncombined niche that you could fill. That could be so incredibly special. Like, I am vibrating with excitement for you. You have this one illustration of like, yeah, so this like fey creature is riding this butterfly. What is that relationship? Is this a bond? Are they treated like horses? Like what is the vibe here? Is this like the equivalent of a car? Like is there like a self-direction component to it? How chaotic are these creatures? What civilization do they exist in and around? Is it just them in this world? Are they the only like sapient intelligent creatures? Or are there more different things that are kind of like them but not really? Like looking at your work makes me want to write a fantasy novel. That is how inspiring it is. But you could do that. You could flesh out this world. You could tell these stories of these characters. You have already created the concepts. I really want you to take it to the next level. That is my big piece of feedback. That's all I have for you. The next artist I want to talk about is Valkyrie, an incredibly talented animator. They've been a professional artist for going on 4 years now, and on top of their day job, they're currently the director and lead animator of an upcoming web series. What started as a small project is now a team of 10 people, and after their trailer got a ton of attention on YouTube and TikTok, people started to mistake their indie project for an official Crunchyroll or Netflix project. Now they feel a little overwhelmed at the attention, and they want to turn this project into something that can sustain them and their team going forward. So this is Valkyrie's official YouTube channel, and I can really see why folks thought this was a professional like Crunchyroll Netflix project, because this looks so good. Genuinely, we have 140,000 views, 91,000 views on these teaser trailers. This is really solid. So I'm gonna say something that might be somewhat controversial, but I think that you should seriously consider outside funding. And here's why. If you want this show to be entirely fan-supported, it is going to take an enormous amount of fan support. And I don't just mean casual views, I mean people opening up their wallets and pledging to your Patreon, right? So right now on your Patreon, you have about 280 members. I have no idea how many of those are free, because you can join Patreon for free now. You would have to have probably tens of thousands of patrons to be primarily fan supported. And in your form, you mentioned having merch, you mentioned having keychains and prints and stickers and hoodies and all of that kind of jazz. That's awesome. But again, those are low margin physical products that you will have to move a ton of inventory to reach your financial goals. I'm concerned about the time management aspect of trying to move that much product and sell that much inventory if you're also trying to produce a TV show. That is a full-time job for someone, okay? If you are trying to create a compelling TV show and market that on top of having merch, I think that would be really challenging, especially if you wanted merch to be a primary line item in your business. Like, I want you to do the math with me, okay? Let's say that you want maybe your entire team to go full-time, right? Like you are trying to take them onto your company. Let's say that you pay them $40,000 a year. Times 10, that's almost $500,000. We're not even considering taxes yet. We're not even considering any other expenses in your business. I think that partnering with outside funding could actually help you a lot. Like, consider giving someone a 10% stake. So they have 10% equity in your company, and they give you, I don't know, maybe $2 million to start and produce this thing. That would cover your expenses for maybe 4 years, maybe 2 years, depending on the other stuff that you've got going on. That could be really good. That could be life-changing. That could mean that you get this show off the ground, and then also you get syndicated by Netflix or Crunchyroll or another studio. That could be huge. Going for the fan-supported route, while totally viable, I don't want I don't want to necessarily discourage that, but I do think it would be an uphill battle and it would be really, really difficult. And if you go that route, I want you to do the math, right? I want you to total up all of the expenses that you have, the production costs, the labor, literally everything, and figure out down to like the last Patreon pledge how many folks you would need. In terms of your general content strategy right now, I think that, and I hate to say this, I think we need to see more content from you. I think that we need to see more stuff so that we can continue to build this hype. And just by looking at the stuff that's been working for you, the stuff that has been working are these big trailers and these big teasers, and you can only do those so many times, right? You can only release a trailer so many times before folks start to think that you are milking that for all that it's worth and you will never actually produce a season. I think that these tutorials, like these devlogs, they're worth making, but they're maybe worth making on a second channel or some kind of secondary platform. I would take a look at the successful creators that you look up to that have managed to turn this into a career. But once again, I do really want to encourage you to think about advertising and outside funding. Think about your business as a business, right? You have a startup. Congratulations. This is really exciting. I want to see this show when it comes out, and I want it to come out. And speaking of turning your creative practice into a business, I do want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I need you to know that even if Squarespace wasn't sponsoring the channel, I would still recommend them. This is because I've used Squarespace to host my own website for years now, and I genuinely believe it is an amazing platform for artists looking to get started selling stuff online. They have all the features a budding art entrepreneur would need, from email lists to fluid design tools that enable you to get your website just right. And for those of us that are intimidated by taxes, aka me, their third-party tools like QuickBooks and TaxJar make collecting and remitting sales tax really easy. I sell prints via dropshipping on my website, as well as purely digital products, but you could sell consulting services like portfolio reviews or even courses on Squarespace. They really do let you do it all. If you want to give it a try, use code Kelsey Rodriguez at checkout to get 10% off your first order of a website or domain. Thank you so much again, and let's get back to the video. The next artist we'll be discussing is Annabelle Studio. Anna is an oil painter who's built an impressive infrastructure around her artistic practice. A YouTube channel focusing on educational content and water mixable oils, a blog, and a website where she sells her originals. But despite all of this groundwork, she's hit a pretty critical roadblock. She still hasn't made any money from her art, and it's making her second guess literally everything. There are a couple of things that I kind of want to say about this. So, do you want to be an educator? Because right now, you are an educator, and if you continue down this path, you will be an educator. I want to make sure that that's what you want, because it's amazing to be an educator. I love being an educator, but it's also not for everyone, and oftentimes, artists kind of fall into this trap where they see other artists, like me, making educational videos because we like being educators, and they see the views that those get because people like being educated, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna do those to get traction, and then I'll pivot. And that's not how it works. The pivot doesn't ever really happen. When you create a certain category of content, you are saying to your viewer, this is me, this is what I make, this is the kind of content that I want to be known for, right? If you're not determined to be an educator, I really want to encourage you to veer away from that as soon as possible, even if it means that you take a hit in terms of views. We can talk about sales, and we will in a second, but I do want to notice that, okay? I do want to make sure that you are aware of that. You have been creating a lot of educational content. If you don't want to be an educator, okay? Some people to check out include Misako Floatin. Misako Floatin really is not overtly an educator, I think. I think Misako Floatin is a painter, an oil pastel painter, and an oil painter, and she's sharing her journey in a really, really cool and exciting way. And notice how her thumbnails are super varied. I think there's a lot to learn here if you don't want to be an educator. Also, someone to look at is Valerie Lynn. Valerie Lynn is increasingly kind of becoming an educator a little bit, I'm noticing, but still her bread and butter is very aesthetic vlogs where she gives like advice, right? It's not super overt educator. It's kind of like she's your best friend and you're hanging out for like an hour. But if you do want to be an educator, and that's kind of the assumption that I'm going to make here, there are some things that we can do. Okay, so you mentioned in your form that you are currently writing an ebook. I love ebooks. I wrote them myself. I think they're great. But if you haven't sold literally anything yet, I want to encourage you to take a chapter of that book. Something relatively self-contained, maybe a maximum of like 15 pages, and start selling it literally right now. Price it at 10, 15, 20 bucks, whatever you want. Could be $5 for all I care, right? I don't have a horse in this race. And pitch that to your audience. Be like, hey, I am writing this book right now. I'm going to be honest, I'm still starting out. I'm still in the beginning of my journey. I'm not sure if this is going to sell. So I'm releasing this small self-contained chapter. Here is all of the value it provides. Here is the transformation that you are going to get if you read it and follow my advice, and it's only $5. And at the end of the book, if you're really, really smart, you'll have a waitlist link with a discount code for the full experience. So folks can purchase that self-contained chapter and then take that purchase and put it toward the full product when it's released, right? Maybe you start an email list and you have a wait list specifically for that product. Also, what you can do, depending on what your timeline is like for this ebook coming out, you can start pre-selling right now to validate demand. There is no reason why the product has to be fully completed before you start selling it. That doesn't have to be how that works. People do Kickstarters for print collections and movies and animated series all the time, right? Why can't you do a Kickstarter campaign or pre-sell your book to your audience? Put a listing on Gumroad or on your website and clearly communicate the delivery timeline. Be like, hey, this thing will come out in September or July, whatever it is, right? Communicate that and be like, you will receive email notifications throughout the writing process. You'll receive updates from me and the finished copy, of course, when it's done. I think really experimenting with pre-selling and low ticket products is the way to go here, right? Do rapid testing. I know that I am tempted personally to spend 6-8 months developing a huge product and releasing that and putting all of my energy into that and making that happen. But I have a more established audience and I can more easily take those breaks without a huge financial hit, and I have more confidence that they'll work out because I have more experience. I think for you, what I want to see is rapid testing with low ticket products. Start releasing things that cost $5, $10, $15, right? Spend a weekend, make 2 products like this, and start selling them in videos, right? Have them like be mentioned super organically in a sentence, 2 sentences, right? A super easy pitch that is not pushy, that just communicates the value and then moves on. I think your art is incredible, Anna. I think that we have so much in common. I noticed that you also like tonalism. That is one of my favorite art movements of all time, and I wish you the best. So that's all the advice that I have for you. Let's move on to our very last artist of this episode. The next artist I want to talk about is Terry Nbone. Terry creates unique art quilts made from hand-dyed, recycled materials presented in vintage frames, with most of her success coming from local art and craft shows where her customers can experience her textural work firsthand. Her biggest challenge right now is figuring out how to transition her highly tactile textural art to effective online sales without abandoning the in-person shows that currently drive her business. Let's take a look at Terry's Instagram. So I really like this. I think this is cool and fun and interesting. I like the folk art vibes here. I think actually really, Terry, what I would love to know is I would love to learn more about your ideal customer. Like, is your ideal customer an older woman or is it someone younger? I'm willing to probably bet it's older women. Just by vibing it out here, I have no idea what your data looks like, but I think if it is older women, you may want to reconsider platforms, actually. You're getting some good traction here, like 16 likes, 22 likes, 29, 42, 43 even. But if your ideal audience isn't really on Instagram, you may want to consider Facebook really seriously. Maybe consider posting super locally. Like if you want to do in-person shows, but you also don't want to scale up those shows, if you want to kind of stick with where you're at and stick with your in-person kind of show schedule, but then also add online sales on top of that, maybe genuinely the best solution here is to become an incredibly ingrained part of your local art community. Like, be super present. If you have any fabric stores that are locally owned or any kind of creative maker spaces, maybe you teach an in-person workshop. Maybe you try and teach quilting at a library near you, right? Libraries often have community events. You could teach folk art or quilting there if you wanted to. You could add an educational component to your business, and you could connect with your ideal customer in the process, perhaps, right? Or you could post about your work on platforms like Facebook and Nextdoor. I know my inclusion of Nextdoor feels really out of left field there, but genuinely, think about it. If your ideal audience is older folks, where do older folks spend their time? On Nextdoor. Think about how you can become a mainstay, a critical part of your local art community. And maybe you do it by just really leaning into the local aspect of it. Maybe you do it by tabling at all of these art shows that you're already doing, and you add on really simple, low-lift stuff in the process. Like, genuinely, I kind of want to challenge you. Post your most popular photos of your work ever onto Nextdoor for 2 months and tell me how it goes. I think probably I have this like sneaking suspicion that it will work better than Instagram. That if you talk about the stories behind your work and what inspires you, you would actually get more sales. I know it sounds super weird, but I have this intuition that it would work because when I go on Nextdoor to like try and see if I can find someone's lost cat or something, I notice that there are a lot of local businesses that advertise on Nextdoor. People that do contracting or electrical or plumbing or that have, pet walking services and stuff. And also I see local artists on there too. I wonder if that would work for you, right? Because you're already doing stuff locally. If you don't already have an email list, let's absolutely get one. Let me check actually. Do you have an email list? You do. It's a hidden button way down here. We gotta fix that. we gotta fix that, okay? I don't want to see that, okay? I want to see big button email list. I want to see it big, proud, on display. I also want to suggest that you be a lot more explicit about who your work is for and who you are trying to reach. So last episode, I gave this advice to another creative of like world building, right? Imagine that your audience hasn't found your work yet, right? But you know who they are. You've met your audience hundreds, if not thousands of times in person. Who are they? You know this person. Describe them to me. Describe their passions, their interests, what drives them, why they're here today, why they like your work, and what else they might like. And how you, specifically, Terry, can create content that appeals to that person, but that they haven't found your work yet, right? You want to lead them to your work by meeting them where they're at and talking about what else they're interested in. Maybe for you, it could be folks who are religious. It could be folks who are like witchy or new age or into crystals. It could be a whole host of different people. But if there is a specific person that especially loves your work, try and make content that is specifically for them. In your mind, when you are creating content, picture a specific customer. Imagine them in your mind. Maybe they're named Jennifer or Kathy or Deborah, whatever. Picture that person in your mind super, super clearly and make content that is just for them. Speak as though you are only speaking to that one person. Make it extremely tailored. When you have a really clear idea of who your audience is, your work is very themed, right? You have your very cohesive style already figured out. Let's not change that at all. Let's just figure out exactly how to market your work to the person that you already know is your ideal customer. And genuinely, I do think that I want to see more variety of content on your Instagram. I want to see you more trying to directly connect with your ideal customer. Right now, I gotta be honest, I don't like posts like this. I want to see a custom branded version that is unique to you, because I'm going to scroll right past this. I think genuinely this is bad design. I think you could do better. This is, one, way too much text. There's an odd amount of spacing between these letters. I don't like that at all. This does not say Terry to me. I want your announcements of the shows that you will be at to say, hey, this is Terry speaking. This is Terry communicating this to you. I think there's a lot more work that you could do to customize and individualize your marketing to your ideal customer. And that is all of the advice that I have for you, Terry. I wish you the best. And for all of you watching, there are 4 big lessons that I want you to learn from watching this video. And number 1 is to lean into storytelling with your marketing. Like we discussed with Melina's work, this can be your story, the story of your work, or a story involving your work. And number 2 is to do the math. To make the best possible choices involving your business, break down your financial goals into product sales and patrons to get accurate goals to shoot for. Number 3, validate your ideas before investing a ton of time into a project. Low ticket products are your friend, and ensuring that a huge project like a graphic novel, a nonfiction book, a huge guide, or an online course is actually engaging and interesting to your audience will save you a ton of time. Number 4, always approach your marketing from the perspective of wanting to serve your ideal audience. Once you have a clear style and direction to your work, fine-tune your messaging, your branding, and your marketing materials to your ideal audience. Build an immersive world of content and products just for them. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you want to catch up to all of the previous episodes of Business Breakthrough, you can do so with this playlist right here. And if you want the chance of being featured in a future episode, you should join my email list. This opportunity is exclusive to them, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.